Okay, so an average woman today that has worked on herself, is young, is healthy, is attractive, she made sure that she doesn't let herself go, is asking, why does the Torah say that a woman's primary mitzvah, primary obligation in the world is to be modest? What do you care? If you don't want to look, don't look. Why is it my business? Why do I care? And why do I have to change my clothes or change my behavior? Because you men can't change your direction of your face. You don't want to look, don't look. It's not my problem. That's the logic. The Torah tells us, Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh Lazeh. All of Am Yisrael are responsible for each other. But not just responsible for each other as in one brother to another, but also we're responsible for mankind. And therefore, no one is allowed to be simply selfish. So one of the rules that Hashem has in the Torah, that's not just for mankind, but also for himself, is measure for measure. So imagine you have a man and a woman, and this woman does everything in her power to attract her husband, to help her husband, to support her husband, to love and care for him. Perhaps she was willing and able and did bring some children to the world for him, and for herself as well, of course, but needless to say, he couldn't do it by himself. This woman did everything in her power to make her husband happy. Now, a husband today could be a boyfriend. A husband today could be somebody she legally married. A husband today could be whoever she wants. But the point is, well, we're going to talk about, what has been normal for the last few thousand years. And she did everything possible to maintain a relationship. And let's say they're sitting down, they're having dinner, and she made sure to, groom herself and take care of herself, to look pretty for him, and to look very pretty for herself too. But of course, she doesn't want him to not like her. And the whole night, every single time the waitress moves, his head moves. And every single time the next door table moves, with a few ladies over there, he also moves. And his eyes, instead of looking at his wife, they're looking at everybody else. So imagine that miserable heart that she has and that bitterness that she has against her husband, and also how terrible she feels herself. I'm not attractive enough. He doesn't love me. He thinks they're prettier. And she has all these thoughts. And even if he actually does think she's pretty, and even if he does think that she's beautiful, and even if he loves her, he simply loves to follow his desire more than her. It has nothing to do with not loving her. But still, she obviously would prefer not to have such a husband, and most likely would want to replace him at some point. Why? Because no woman wants to be second best, needless to say, 15th best. So when a woman walks around immodest in such a fashion where she is not just attractive, but she's attracting. It's not a sin to be pretty. Hashem created a person pretty, and it's even a mitzvah to be pretty for whoever you're allowed to be pretty for, which is your husband. But to be attracting, and in essence, do things, wear things, act in a certain way where you are attracting the attention of other men may not seem like a big deal when you're a single woman looking for a husband, but what if the attention that you're gathering is somebody else's husband? And now, instead of him looking at his wife, he's looking at you. And if we take it even deeper, and you think about it further, you realize that men and women don't just play Tetris together in Monopoly, they also go and behind closed doors. And imagine the man that she loves and she is willing to give herself to is thinking about a different woman while he's with her. In his mind, he's thinking about this woman that he saw in a restaurant. He's not thinking about the wife that gave him everything that he wants. He's not thinking about the woman that is saying, I love you. No, he's thinking about some woman that he saw that didn't give him the time of day and wouldn't. But instead, he's thinking about her. He's thinking about how she looks. What is that going to do to his wife? Destroy her. It's literally spiritual murder. So now when a woman is attracting, she's attracting the attention of not just single men that could potentially be her husband, but she's attracting the minds and the attention and the life of marriages. And the measure for measure that Hashem punishes a woman that is creating such tension is that you created problems for other people's marriages. Therefore, you will have problems in getting married or problems in your marriage. And I'm not saying you particularly, I'm talking about a woman in general. Women that tend to be the most beautiful women as far as attracting is concerned also tend to be the most lonely women. Usually they're divorced the most amount of times or simply never married, and typically they end up becoming the most self-conscious women because they don't know what they're doing wrong, but nobody would have them. And not realizing that this is in essence, not that nobody would have them, everybody would like them, but they simply are not willing to make them their wife. Why? Because Hashem wouldn't allow it. Because they created a problem for other marriages, and therefore they're having in essence, that's the measure for measure. That's one thing. Step number two is to also know that the Torah tells us, especially in the world of the Zohar and the Kabbalah, it's also in the Gemara, that each of our actions create either an angel that is going to fight for us or a demon that's going to fight against us. Good actions, according to Torah, create an angel that will give us strength to do more good and have more holiness. Bad actions create a demon that in essence will entice us to do more bad. So each time a woman makes a sin, she's creating a demon. Each time a man makes a sin, he creates a demon. And that demon will attract that person to more bad. So for example, people that do bad things tend to be attracted to bad things. Why? Because they have in essence made those their own creations, their demons, masters over them, and they're influencing them. It's like having a 150-pound weights on top of your head while you're trying to run. It's obviously going to be a lot more difficult. So the same concept here. When a person that does a lot of bad wants to do something good, they have a lot of resistance, they have a lot of difficulty, and it's much more difficult for them to do something that's relatively simple for even a little boy to do. Why? Because that boy hasn't ruined himself yet, and he hasn't made himself inclined to evil like the adult has. And the same thing opposite. A person that, let's say, has been Torah observant for an extended period of time, it's much easier for them to pray, it's much easier for them to talk to God, it's much easier for them to do good deeds than it is for somebody that is either just starting out or never did. Why? Because that person that did good things has different angels that he or she created in order to entice them to do even more good. Whereas the other person doesn't have that. In fact, he has the opposite. So there is a consequence of our actions where these demons do influence our actions. Further, there's something called nightmares, and even further, there's something called night terrors. I hope you don't know what it means, but if you do, then, and hopefully it's only from theoretical knowledge and not actual knowledge, because night terrors are hell on earth. It's being awake, but living a dream at the same time. And this is as a result of immorality and idolatry. Those are the two primary things that cause those things. One of the things that causes the highest level of immorality is when a woman is immodest. And the reason why is because since she is not only responsible for herself, but for the world around her and how she is doing things to other people, if her immodesty is, or whatever attracting behavior she has and whatever immorality she does, leads another man to waste seed, then that man is not just producing one demon, he's producing many. And by many, I mean millions. And that punishment doesn't just go on him, it goes on her too, because she's in essence a partner to the crime. Even if she doesn't even know the guy, he just looked at her on a video and he decided to do what he wants to do with himself. She's responsible for it because she was a tool. She made herself into a tool that he used in order to do what his lust desired. Now again, you're saying, well, it's not my fault. Well, everybody can say it's not my fault, but the truth is that if she didn't look that way and she wasn't that attracting, but rather remained attractive, then of course he wouldn't do it what he did with her. He would do it somewhere else, and then she wouldn't have any share in this situation. Same thing you can say about a person that looks at another woman, the other woman that he's looking at, even though his wife is right next to him. It's not our fault that our stupid husband is looking at this woman, but saying, yeah, it's not your fault, but if you didn't look that way, then my husband wouldn't look at you, and he wouldn't think about you, and he wouldn't want to divorce me because of you. So this gets uglier and uglier as time goes on, because remember, we're not all going to be 20 years old forever. We're not all going to be at a top shape forever. One day, a woman gives birth. Another day, she wakes up simply tired. She didn't put her best clothes on, or the best makeup on, or she's just not in shape, or she doesn't feel well. So a woman is not going to maintain her attractive status forever. Things go up, things go down, especially in the world today when everything is so volatile. So a person needs to know that if they are putting themselves in a situation where their whole life is based on, or at least a very significant part of their life is based on how people view them physically, then there's a consequence for that too. There's a certain people that, a certain environment that a person attracts as a result of their behavior. And again, this is just a small microcosm of some of the things to consider, because most people don't consider other people. They consider themselves. They consider how it's going to affect them. They don't realize that they themselves could one day be the victim, where they could be 40 or 50 or 60 years old, and their 60-year-old husband that they don't particularly find attractive anymore, like they used to, but they love him dearly, could leave them for a 20-year-old. Why? Because he can. Simple. He can leave him for a 20-year-old. And why? Because he finds her as attractive. And when he married this person, she was 20 years old, and she gave him the last 40 years of her life, and now he doesn't want her anymore. He wants a new version. And she's going to say, well, that's not fair, and that's not nice, and I could do the same thing to him. And yes, you can, but who would want to live such a life? Who would want to live such a life where you know that everything you have in your life is temporary, that your relationships are temporary, and the love is temporary, and it's all fake? Who wants to live such a fake life? And the truth is that whatever a person does, the Hashem does back to them as a measure for measure. And if a person produces good in the world, good will be produced in return, not just in this world, but for eternity. If a person simply acts selfish and they only care about what they feel and how they want people to look at them and to whistle at them like they're dogs and to make themselves into public property, then of course this is not a person that's going to produce a lot of good. Last but not least, always remember, a daughter of God is not just a precious diamond, but is a priceless diamond, which means that if you had $100 million diamond, you wouldn't throw it in the air and like a ball. You would hide it, you would put it in a safe, you'd protect it. Why? Because it is expensive, it is precious. The only thing that people allow the whole world to look at without them caring is garbage. That's the only thing. No one cares if anybody looks into their garbage, unless they're throwing garbage, some private documents or something, but that's usually not the case. People don't care if somebody looks through their garbage. It's not a bother. Why? Because it's garbage. If I needed it, I wouldn't throw it out. So it's important for a woman to know that if she respects herself, she shouldn't treat herself like garbage that everybody could look at and everyone can touch and everyone can check and everyone can pretty much get a free pass to, but rather treat herself like this precious diamond that's covered, that's protected, that only allows itself to be seen by chosen people and not necessarily by just any mailman that walks by her. And I think that the more a person looks into the Torah's perspective of modesty, the more they realize that if they really did believe that they are a princess, they would look like one. And princesses, queens, don't walk around with mini skirts and tube tops and bikinis. Princesses walk around with gowns. They walk around with an outfit that shows their royalty. And every daughter of God is royalty. It's just simply time that they treat themselves that way. That's it. It's not a persecution against women. It's quite the opposite. It's honoring women and reminding them that they're a princess.